Welcome to Performance Anxiety. This show features bassist and lap steel guitarist Dana Schechter. When we recorded this, she was staying in Berlin after cutting a tour short for her band Insect Arc. She talks about how wild it was for the band and the crew. Someone may have had to sneak back into their home country, but that's all I'm saying about that right now. Dana talks about growing up in the early 80s Bay Area metal scene, driving around and hanging out with Burton, and how his death really made her focus on bass. She also talks about some of the incredible bands she's been a part of, like Gift Horse, Angels of Light, and Swans, and the difficulties of being an independent artist. She's recently released a new album by Insect Arc, but it wasn't easy. If you like heavy instrumental music, buy it. Follow Dana at Insect Arc. Follow us at Performance ANX. Subscribe, rate, review, share, and without further ado, here's Dana Schechter.
Okay. Hey there, this is Dana Schechter from the band Insect Arc, and you are listening to Performance Anxiety. Yeah, was that all right? Okay. Yeah, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing good. It's a very cold day here in Virginia.
Oh.
So it's...
Really?
Yeah, it may actually snow.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. We got some weird cold front coming through, and it's like, I think the high today is supposed to be 40.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Ugh, it's crazy. How are you doing?
Wow. I'm pretty good. I'm in Berlin, and it's about 75 degrees out today,
oh, God.
which is wild. It's like proper summer weather, and I was just out, and everybody's walking around in t-shirts.
Man.
But I'm sure it'll be cold and crappy again before long. So, man. But yeah, I'm good, thanks.
I have had so many people on from Berlin recently. It's crazy. But I've had Andre Leo from Medicine Boy, Alexander Haka and Danielle De Picciotto were on recently. Marco Porcia, he's been there. And then there's somebody, who else was there? There's somebody else that I had that was in Berlin. I don't remember. I think some metal guy. I don't know. Some heavy metal dude. I don't know. But there's at least 4 or 5 people over the past month or so that have recorded we're all in Berlin. So.
Wow. Well, it's a great place. I lived here for a while, actually. So.
Actually, everybody has said it's a great, especially for artists. It's a great place.
Yeah, it really is.
So, thank you for joining me all the way from Berlin. See, editing. There we go. It's only 10 o'clock. I haven't finished my first cup of coffee yet.
No, we could have done it later.
No. This is actually perfect. Kids are still groggy. They're not going to be running around all over the place. Although they're teenagers, they're probably not going to be running around anywhere. But you're in Berlin, and you were kind of in the middle of a tour when everything had to get canceled because of the coronavirus. So, were you planning on staying in Berlin, or you didn't get stranded? Did you?
I'm not exactly stranded. I don't know what the availability of flights are if I did want to go back. But to answer your original question, Insect Arc was on tour, and we had completed 5 shows out of a 16-show tour. We had started in Greece. Well, we actually started in New York for the record release show. And then we flew to Greece, and we played in Athens. And then we flew to Berlin, got our vehicle and our equipment, and picked up all the merchandise, and we drove to Brussels, and then we drove to the UK, and we finished 3 of the UK shows. And while we were in Greece is when things started becoming pretty obvious that there was a really serious problem. And at that point, it was really mostly just Italy that was looking like they had a very serious problem.
Right.
But, promoters were starting to get really nervous. And while we were in the UK, we were getting notifications that okay, this, Bratislava just canceled. Okay. This show in Holland just canceled so we were getting these notifications while we were in England, that, things were really starting to disintegrate pretty quickly. And England was actually one of the later ones to really address the severity of the coronavirus spreading. And the last show that we did was in Brighton, and at a tiny little bar, and people were in there like it was no big deal. There were people just all shoved up in there, hanging out really tight. And, at one point I wanted to get a new glass for my drink, and I went to the bartender and I was like, hey, can I get a new glass? Because I've been handling this one for a while. And he kind of looked at me like, why? And I said, well, because of the virus. Like, he's like, oh, right. Yeah, we've got to start thinking about that. And then he proceeded to handle the glass and put his hands all over, and then hand it to me. And I was like, okay,
thanks.
Clearly, they haven't been told that this thing is spreading like wildfire.
Yeah.
And, within a few days that, I think the news was everywhere, then things were starting to get shut down there as well. But, we were concerned because we would be going in and out of clubs, and people were, just breathing and spreading and coughing and doing what they do.
Because in a club show, you're so close to the audience.
Yeah, exactly. And these, some of those shows were pretty small anyway. And we were actually supposed to fly to Russia the next day after that Brighton show for a festival. And, had gone through the whole process of procuring the visas and, arranging the flights were bought and everything. And they still wanted us to come. And we were like, nope.
Wow.
Because the last thing we wanted to do was get stuck in Russia. And I think that, considering how things were developing, it wasn't an impossibility, because what we decided to do instead was, gracefully say, we're really sorry, believe us, this is not what we want to do, but we cannot get on a plane to Moscow right now. Because we had to really watch our own ass. And we had heard that Germany was going to potentially close the border, because our driver on the tour was from the Czech Republic, and he told us that the Czech Republic had already closed the border.
Oh, wow.
And so we had, this crew of people. So there was myself, I basically live in New York. There's Andy Patterson, our drummer. He lives in Salt Lake City, Utah. Our driver, Martin, who lives in the Czech Republic, and our band manager and sound man, Nikos, who's Greek but lives in Berlin. So we were like, all right, we better figure out what the best case scenario is. And our driver had been bitten by a bug, and we had to take him to the hospital because he had some swelling, and that was in England, and we were concerned about his health. And so the whole thing was like a little bit crazy. So we basically hightailed it out of Brighton and drove straight back to Berlin.
Oh my!
And
God.
We drove the van through there's like a tunnel. Mm-hmm. They call it the channel.
Right. Yeah.
And it's basically, instead of taking your van on the giant boat, you you drive into this thing that's like this long subway car, and it holds vehicles, and then that thing just shoots under the water.
Oh, wow.
So we basically, so we hightailed it out of the UK, drove straight back to Germany, stopped at the first grocery store we could once we got through. And I think it was a Sunday, and we had heard that they might close the border on Monday. So we were like, all right, shit, we got to get back. So we have stopped in Germany. We got gas. We went to a gas station, got toilet paper, and because we've been hearing this was during the toilet paper section of the virus.
Yeah, the great toilet paper crisis of 2020.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, that was a long ramble, but we did make it back. And then after a few days, Nikos, our manager, managed to figure out how to get Andy back to to Utah because his flight wasn't for several weeks still.
Oh boy.
Because we still had all these tour dates. And then
That's
I
right.
was already, and then I was going to already stay because I was slated to start rehearsals with Swans on April 1st.
Right.
And I was already planned to be gone for 3 months. And so this was like less than, like a little over a week into a 3-month trip.
Oh, man.
So, and Merton, our driver, had to kind of sneak back into the Czech Republic because the border was closed. So the whole thing was really hairy.
It sounds like this could be a movie.
Yeah, and it was, it was nerve-wracking because what would have happened if we hadn't been able to get back into Berlin? We would have had a Czech, like a big giant van from the Czech Republic filled with music equipment from the Czech Republic, which we were renting, of course, and paying for, and then all this, merchandise, and then, some people not from Germany trying to get to Germany. So it did all work out fine, and I'm still here, and I'm safe here, and
at least you're not stuck in Russia.
Yeah, exactly. And the truth is, Mark, is that it didn't take a mathematician or a virologist to know that New York City was going to get slammed by this.
Yeah.
And I saw what my options were. And at that point, the Swans stuff had not been officially postponed anyway, so I wasn't going to split. But I knew that New York City was going to get hit hard, and especially considering the way that I saw that the Trump administration was handling it by not handling it and, ignoring the situation and botching the thing so terribly. And I was like, all right, I'm not walking into that.
It's been amazing. It's really, we got lucky because we were pretty well stocked as far as toilet paper was concerned. Paper? Yeah.
And
what
pasta.
happened?
Bread.
Yeah. Okay, that's something that I didn't think was going to get. We were going to be short on was yeast. My wife likes to make breads and stuff, and my dad lives nearby, and so they were asking for yeast and all. I still can't find yeast. It's insane. The toilet paper is starting to come back, but we were doing some just housework while we were in quarantine because my wife had to get tested for the virus early on. She's in a high risk category. She'd had surgery recently, so she was considered high risk, and she was presenting with some symptoms. She had basically every symptom except the fever. So our primary care said, "I want you to get tested." So as soon as that happened, and that was mid-March, I want to say, and as soon as that happened, both of our employers, hers and mine, just shut us down. They said, "All right, you're just quarantine yourselves for 2 weeks." So we were just at home and we were like, all right, well, she didn't feel bad. She's like, all right, well, let me do some cleaning and all. And so she did some cleaning and found an enormous roll of thing of toilet paper that we didn't have. It was like 16 rolls or something. She's like,
sell it on the black market.
I know, it was like currency. It's like
trade it for a car.
Although I didn't want to be like that dude on eBay or Amazon who bought 17,000 things of the hand sanitizer. He got stuck with it because Amazon kicked him off. So you can't do that. He bought it for like $1 and wanted to sell them for 20.
What a jerk!
Oh, it really was. And he ended up having to giving them all away to first responders and charities. So at least some good came out of it. But what a shitty thing to do to start with.
Well, he was obviously onto something. I mean, people who are, consumed by conspiracy theories, they're not wrong with some of this stuff. I mean, society really seemed like it might break down. Yeah. And I think it might still, honestly. But I don't know what it's like in Virginia, but here in Berlin, the stores have been open for a couple weeks. And I think that people feel, like as long as they can buy their, I don't know, whatever. I don't really buy stuff. So whatever people buy, they want to go shopping and they want to get, Easter decorations, or they wanted to get,
Oh,
clothes for their
stuff,
kids
yeah.
or whatever. People need to have this feeling like they need to shop. And if they can't shop, that life is, falling to pieces. And
yeah,
I feel like people here at least started feeling better. Everything's okay. We can shop again. But of course, what happens is then they start testing and there's more people getting sick.
Yeah.
And,
well, here,
I know that's the case everywhere. So
here, at least in Virginia, I can speak a little bit to like Pennsylvania and New Jersey areas because I have family up there, and we've been in touch. Fortunately, that's one of the great things about the internet still being up is I can still keep up with my family. But what's going on here is that places like grocery stores and all they've never been completely closed, but most of the retail stuff is pickup only or delivery. Including restaurants, but I know a lot of restaurants are closing the doors. One of my favorite restaurants in town here is their lease is up in June and they're not going to renew it.
Damn.
But there's a lot of I'll tell you, like DoorDash is killing it right now. But that's about it. I mean, and the other weird thing that I've noticed is that restaurants are closing at weird hours now. Like there's apparently like some meat shortage going on now. I don't know what the hell.
Yeah.
But
that's because all the workers are sick.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Like half of them. Yeah, I know this is a music podcast and not a political podcast, but there's some pretty serious deficiencies in logic being exposed based on how things are being handled. And honestly, I sometimes wonder if the human species has any concept of doing things in its own self-interest and like having any concept of bigger picture. But maybe that's a discussion for another time.
I will agree with you completely on that. But so yes, okay. Yeah. So back to the actual topic of conversation, which is you. So how old were you when you started actually playing music? Did you grow up in a musical household? Were your parents playing a lot of music?
Yeah, I did. My mom played flute and she played piano, and so I picked up flute as well.
Oh wow!
When I was 9, and then I guess the first year of junior high school, I was in the school band and I played upright bass, which was hilarious because I was this little shrimp of a kid, literally standing on a box, But that also coincided with the next year, age 12, is when I actually started going to metal shows.
Oh, wow.
And and so I gave up the upright bass because I just wasn't, I don't know, I lost interest. Really, all I wanted to do was go to metal shows. And that's pretty much what I did besides being a kid, along with my older sister. We had just moved back from Oregon where we lived. So I grew up in San Francisco, and my folks were divorced. My dad at some point moved to Oregon, and for 1 year, my older sister and I lived with him. And that was the year that, right before I entered junior high school. And while we lived in Oregon, my sister Leah, her best friend Lisa was sending these letters to us saying, "It's so awesome. I met these hot rock dudes and they're in a band, and I went and saw their band and they were awesome and they were so killer." And
oh my God.
We were like, whoa, wow. And Lisa has a younger sister, Stephanie, and Stephanie's my age. And so Lisa and Stephanie were like, when you guys move back here next year, we're going to go check out all these metal bands and these hard rock bands. And, there's all these cool people. And we were living in a town of 10,000 people in Ashland, Oregon. Ashland, Oregon is no longer 10,000 people, but, we were raised in San Francisco in the Mission District and the Haight-Ashbury District. So we were really city kids. And
wow, that's a change.
it was great to live with our dad for a year, but it wasn't really our personality. So we were pretty chomping at the bit to move back to San Francisco. And we did. So starting the first year of junior high school, my sister Leah and I, and along with Lisa and Stephanie and some other friends, started going to metal shows. And so,
oh man, Bay Area metal.
Yeah, particularly the thrash metal scene, because that's what was happening there. So that is actually a really key point in my development as a heavy music person, and also why I play bass. And there's a bunch of stories related to that. But I will let you direct the conversation with more questions if you like.
No problem. This is just an open conversation. We're just chatting. So what kind of bands were you seeing live? Who and anybody that I'd recognize?
Yeah, if you are into metal, you would.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so there was definitely a lot of these sort of mid-sized and smaller local bands, but the ones that were popular that we were friends with, there was Exodus were really good friends with us, and bands like Death Angel and stuff like that. But the ones that were really popular that were our friends group was Metallica. And
nice. That's a good group to know.
Yeah. And then Slayer was around too. So we were, this was a couple of years later, honestly. But my sister was James Hetfield from Metallica's girlfriend when she was, she was young. Let's put it that way. She was young. And and it was before they blew up, like right before they blew up.
That's awesome. This is like the No Life Till Leather era.
Well, this was like, they released Kill 'Em All in, I don't have the...
I think it was 83.
It was early 80s.
Yeah.
It was early 80s. I mean, we were into bands, like all these British metal bands. That was the scene of music that we listened to, like bands like Motorhead and, Diamond Head. And a lot of British metal. And of course, the big bands like Judas Priest and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But so when Metallica kind of showed up in the scene in the Bay Area, they, showed up from LA, and there was already this really bustling and vibrant metal scene. And I think, history has documented that they were welcomed into our community and, subsequently blew up. But, those were a group of friends. And so we hung out with them all the time. And, the reason I play bass, so later, I started playing bass at 16. And the reason I started playing bass was because of Cliff Burton from Metallica. And Cliff is, for anybody who doesn't know, Cliff Burton was the bass player who died on tour with Metallica. And he was the one who was on all the really seminal early Metallica albums. And Cliff and I were friends, and we used to hang out a lot. And, all the people in that scene were a good few years older than me. And they were always like, you should start playing music again. You should pick up a bass again. You're so much younger than us. By the time you're our age, you'll be really good. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, Cliff, give me bass lessons. And he was like, no problem. Get a bass. I'll give you bass lessons. And we would like drive around in his car and listen to the Misfits and,
oh my gosh,
etc. Hanging out, tons of stories. But anyway, around the time that they started blowing up, then they were gone, and they were always on tour, and I didn't get the bass. And this all seems like years in my mind, but it was really like 6 months. And I kind of, around the age of 16, sort of started getting interested in different kinds of music, like more like dark gothy stuff like Bauhaus and bands like that. And I wasn't going to as many metal shows, and Metallica was playing stadiums by that time. And so anyway, I had really meant it that I wanted to learn bass again. And it was in earnest, but I was a teenager. And so I was just kind of doing whatever. And when Cliff died, I said, I'm going to go get a bass. And I went and I got a bass that week, and I started playing it, you know, to honor him and to also sort of cement personally my dedication to the idea that if you say you want to do something and you mean it, then you should really do it, because you don't know what's going to happen. And I wouldn't say I kicked myself that I didn't get bass lessons from Cliff Burton, but I mean, he was an incredible musician and also one of the coolest humans you could ever meet. And anyway, you know, I went and I got a bass, and I still play it. In fact, I have it with me, and I'm looking at it right now. I've had this bass since I was 16, and it's the one that I use on tour and on all the records. And so that was my sort of beginning of playing bass.
See, I've
so I'm
heard
really
that.
a bassist. That's my
So
name.
okay, so you're basically, you didn't just switch from something. That's who you are.
Yeah, I'm a bassist.
Man, okay. So was it? I'm trying to. I have a question that I wanted to ask, but I think he just kind of answered it, because I wanted to know if there was a band in particular that really flipped that switch and made you want to do it professionally, as opposed to just, well, I want to learn the bass. Cliff was amazing, awesome. I want to learn the bass in his honor. To, I want to do this professionally. Did that all happen at the same time, or was there something that made you progress from learning it to being the bassist professionally?
Well, I mean, keep in mind, you know, I was 16.
Right.
So I don't know. I wouldn't say that I, at age 16, decided to point myself in the direction of being a professional musician. But what I can say is that, like many people with creative brains, you know, much of my life, I felt pretty lost and unsure what I was supposed to do. And I didn't really grab onto any of the traditional things that are offered to college age students. You know, you could study business, you could become a nurse, you could become a doctor. And I was like, no. And, you know, and I'd always been a visual artist, and for better or for worse, I have a pretty creative brain. And so when I found music, I was like, damn, makes me really happy. This makes me feel really good. I want to do this. And so I got really, really into it. And I just was really happy to find something that I really enjoyed. That was the main thing, that I was like, finally, I found something that I think I can do, and that, you know, makes me feel really good. And I just kind of went for it, grabbed onto it like a pit bull and just didn't let go.
Well, you mentioned that you're also a visual artist, filmmaker, and you do a lot of documentaries. And were you interested in that at the same time as you started learning bass?
No, I mean, it's important to clarify, I'm not a filmmaker. I'm an animator.
Sorry.
And yes, so basically I started out as a painter. As a teenager, when I was studying art, I was studying oil painting and printmaking and etching and stuff like that. Okay. And while I was studying that, I got exposed through the college in San Francisco to sort of rudimentary computer graphics, and which led to a job. And then on that job, I was exposed to different kinds of software, and I discovered one that was really exciting to me, and I decided to teach myself that. I got a copy and I taught myself that.
Oh, wow.
And it turns out that it's, by some amazing stroke of luck, still really relevant in the visual field, and it is used for films, but it's also used for television, and it's used for a number of things, web stuff, and it's basically like a moving version of Photoshop. It's called Adobe After Effects. And so the term is kind of motion graphics, and you're a photographer, so you're familiar with the Adobe software. And so basically, you know, as far as film work goes, you know, the animation work I've done is not like animation. When you say computer animation, people think about character animation, or they think about cell animation, you know, like The Simpsons or something, but it's nothing like that. it's much, how do you explain it? It's much more graphic or film or video or effects based as opposed to commercially like cell animation.
Right. You're not doing Disney stuff.
Yeah, and I'm not doing really character animation, which is animation. To say you do animation is the same thing as like saying, I'm a musician. So like if somebody says, oh, what do you do? I'm a musician. So like that can mean, first of all, a lot of things.
Yeah.
It can, you could say like, I play the tambourine. I'm a musician. You could say like, I'm a, first chair violinist in an orchestra. I'm a musician. So there's a lot of steps in between.
Yeah.
So when I say I'm an animator, that's just like it's kind of like boom,
very broad,
the easy
stroke,
version.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for, like anything, there's thousands of facets of, what that means.
Exactly. So, unless you say you're a podcaster and then it's just like one thing. And everybody does that.
But that's not true. I don't think anything is as simple as just one thing. I guess you could say that, if you just like fix tires on a car, like all I do is change tires on cars all day. That's all I can do. And that's all I do. And like, boink, in the end. But yeah. I don't think that there's ever a simple answer, unfortunately. I'm always looking for the simple answer, but it doesn't exist.
You're absolutely right. But I do have a question that does have a simple answer for you.
Sure.
What was the first band that you recorded with?
The first band I recorded with was called the Mud Puppies.
The Mud Puppies.
The Mud Puppies, yep. And the Mud Puppies was a group of friends in San Francisco. I guess I was probably 17, 18. And Mud Puppies was really like a rock and roll band. It was these guys that were friends, Ted and Chris and Jim, and they were all from Detroit, and they were really into this sort of Detroit rock and roll, not like MC5 type rock and roll, but we did a cover, like a Deep Purple cover, give you
nice
some context. But it was fun. And my friend Dave, who had been my boyfriend at the time, he had started out in that band and then he left. But it was like good times. It was fun. And I played my first shows with them as well. And we made, I don't know if that record even came out. But that must have been, I don't know, 87, 88, something like that. But my sort of, and I was in it for like a couple of years, I guess, but my sort of main first like really serious band was called Gift Horse.
I was just talking to somebody about that yesterday. I'd mentioned
about that band.
Yeah, I mentioned that you were coming on the show. It's a friend of mine out in like I think he's in the Kansas City area. Mm-hmm. He's a huge Swans fan. And he's in a band in the 90s, blanking on their name right now, and Steve's going to kill me when he hears this.
Edit it in later.
Absolutely.
Do it. He'll be so happy.
But
sorry, Steve.
Season to Risk. That's.
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, so Steve Tulipana, I'd mentioned that you were coming on. Said I got to know because I've had a few people who are tangential to Swans. I've been fortunate enough to have Michael on himself, but
I know that was great. I heard it.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I got man. He was one person that really made me nervous talking to him.
Michael's a puppy. Not really, but
Swans was one of those bands that when I first heard them, I didn't get it. It kind of frightened me, actually. It was White Light from the Mouth of Infinity was the first thing I ever, that album. And it took years for me to actually get into them. And once I got into them, though, I'm 100% full on into them. And so I was talking to Steve. Steve has been a fan for years, 20, 30 years, whatever, and I said, I got Dana coming on, and he's like, I think I know somebody who played with her around the Gift Horse era. I'm like, oh, okay. And I think he said it was, he wasn't sure if it was Tim Dow or not, but he was like, I love Gift Horse. They were awesome. So the fact that you just brought that up, I'm like, I gotta remember that Steve was talking about that.
Well, yeah, Gift Horse was a three-piece instrumental band. It was sort of like prog rock, but not like psych prog rock.
Okay.
And it was just the three of us. There was never any other members, and it was started by me and a guy named Jeff Whitehead. And Jeff was playing drums, and I was playing bass, and a guitar player named Doug Hilsinger. And many people know Jeff now under the name Leviathan. He's a very, very well-respected, popular one-man American black metal band.
Okay, I've heard of that, yes.
Yeah, so, of course, this was, we were not even 20, I think, when we started that band. And that band started literally, like Jeff and I had been friends, and we were listening to a lot of stuff like, we were listening to a lot of Steve Albini stuff, like Steve Albini type, but not type, but stuff that Albini had recorded, like Jesus Lizard and Big Black and Rape Man and bands like that. And we were like, hey, let's start a band. Cool. Okay, so where are we going to rehearse? And I was like, I don't know. I live on this really busy street in San Francisco. It's really noisy. There's a restaurant downstairs, and there's all these like stoners that live upstairs from me. So let's just rehearse in my bedroom. So bring your drums over. So he brought his drums over, and I got a bass amp, and we started playing in my bedroom. This is like a residential neighborhood in San Francisco. And the guys that lived upstairs, Doug Hilsinger being one of them, Doug was playing in this band called Bomb, B-O-M-B, who was playing, they played all the time, and we would go see them, and we loved Bomb. Bomb was amazing. And Doug was in Bomb, and we were like, man, maybe Doug will hear us and come down and be like, hey, you guys sound good. And eventually that did happen, and we were like, hey, do you want to play with us? So that's how Gift Horse was formed, and we rehearsed in my bedroom, and we did tons of shows, and we made 2 albums, and nothing ever happened, and none of us had like a shred of sense about business or anything. We never toured. The records were put out on these tiny, tiny labels. I think the second one didn't even officially come out, and we would like pack venues. So it's just really a sad thing because, the music was really good, and it's all out there if you know where to find it. But, that was my first band that I was really, really serious about, and it was really challenging. And I learned a lot from both of those guys. And
so how did you go from bass to lap steel?
Well, a lot happened in between.
So let's get into the in-between stuff then.
Yeah, so basically, Gift Horse pretty much stopped. And to be honest, I don't really remember why. But it might have coincided with me moving to New York. I moved to New York from San Francisco in 1997. And the reason that I left is that I felt that I had kind of done everything in San Francisco that I could do, which is absurd, but that's how it felt at the time. And I had told myself, I'm from the city, and when there's no more reasons to stay here, then I'll go. And of course that's subjective because my family was and still is there and had tons of friends, and, I had it really good there, and I lived in an amazing warehouse space out by the bay, and it was, I had like this giant loft and big community. But I think that I was just really itching to move on with my life. And, San Francisco, that can be or was pretty casual, and I wanted to get really serious about music, and I wanted to become an animator, and I had been studying this animation software, and I wanted to start my own band, and I had started writing songs, and I had, in the interim, taught myself piano and a little bit of drums and basic recording, and I had also started to sing. And all of those were just because I couldn't find anybody to do it that understood stylistically what I was going after. And at that time, I was listening to a lot of stuff like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds and PJ Harvey, and that sort of like dark adult music that could be noisy and could be mellow. And, you know, that's really where my head was at. And I couldn't really find anybody to do that with me. And I was looking and couldn't do it. And I was like, fuck it, I'm out of here. I'm going to go.
Yeah, exactly.
So I moved to New York, and that was within a couple of years after kind of getting established and starting to do my freelance animation work mostly on commercials initially, and started meeting different people. That's when I met Michael Jura, and that's also when I started that band that I had for 12 years called Bee and Flower. Yeah. It kind of happened all around the same time.
Oh, okay. And all right, so you meet Michael Jura, and then Bee and Flower, and Bee and Flower, that was a band that I was familiar with, but didn't know much about. I think back when you were active there, I remember hearing about the band, but
really?
Yeah, but I never. Because I'm trying to remember, was that when I was living in because I lived in New Jersey for years and years, and I'm trying to remember if that was around the time, or I moved down south after 15 years in the New York, New Jersey area. I'm trying to remember if it was because I heard it or a buddy of mine had it and was telling me about it, but I never dove too deeply into it until recently, and damn it, I missed out because I love Bee and Flower.
Oh, thanks.
It's fantastic. And I was that. Oh gosh, I wrote this down. My notes are just scattershot all over the place.
Oh, that's cool.
But
my brain is scattershot. So. We're in good company.
The song, and I mentioned this to you before. When we were talking before the show. It's that Bee and Flower sounds nothing like what you're doing now to me, at least to start with. Like Insect Arc, they don't. To me, there's almost, until I heard what you told me to listen to, which is the What's Mine Is Yours album, and get really deep into it. It sounds more alt country. And there's that one album that came out just in Europe that with so many, there's strings all over. It's beautiful. I'm just really upset with myself that I didn't find this out, because the band's amazing. The coda, the violin coda on "I Know Your Name." Literally yesterday, I'm sitting at work and I'm tearing up because it was just so beautiful. Looking at me all weird.
John Petro playing that beautiful violin. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. So, how did you go that route? And I do hear a little bit more heaviness in that last album, but there's a lot of like alt country influences in that. How did that creep into your vocabulary from your metal background?
Well, okay, so when I was, I'll see if I can explain this on a kind of linear timeline. Basically, remembering what I had said, I was I moved to New York because I wanted to get serious about music, and the kinds of songs that I had been making on my 4-tracks were, bass and piano and like really crappy guitar playing, because I've never been a guitarist. And it was for me all about bass and piano and drums. And, as I said, I had really been listening to a lot of this stuff like Bad Seeds, Tinder Sticks, bands that were doing this kind of twisted, dark lounge music.
Right.
I mean, it was a very specific scene. And when I got to New York, it took me a little while to meet people. And I basically had written the better part of, like a set's worth of material, and started finding some people to play it with me.
Okay.
And some of that material was, a couple years old. I had written it back in San Francisco, but some of it was new. And at that point, yes, I was listening to stuff like Bad Seeds and Tinder Sticks and PJ Harvey, but I still was listening to stuff like Birthday Party or Jesus Lizard or Casper Brotzman or Swans or things like that were like sort of heavier and noisy. And so my sort of vision, if you want to call it that, for Bee and Flower was to combine this sort of depressive lounge music, mixed with like sort of this sort of dense heaviness and this sort of orchestrated idea. And so the people that got involved for the first album were largely playing parts that I had written, and I had written all the songs, and many times I had written the melody lines, or I had written, just a melody, and then I was like, okay, who wants to pick this up? The violinist would play it, and I would be like, that's great. Or the piano player would play the piano part that I had written. And, over time, as the band developed, people, our styles kind of blended. But initially, it was stuff that I had written. And that was difficult because I didn't know how to lead a band. And I think I was a real pain in the ass. But the outcome of that was the first album called What's Mine Is Yours. And that is probably the closest to what the vision for the band was, which was like sort of like heavy and sad and really pretty, and orchestrated and dark. And what happened over time is that relationships develop between people, and in an effort to make the band a band and not be my band, I started saying like, okay, yeah, well, maybe we can try your idea. Or, instead of writing other people's parts, they wrote their parts. And I wanted it to become a band. I never wanted to be a dictator, but I also had this really unflinching ideas about how I wanted things to sound. And honestly, I didn't enjoy being a front person. I didn't enjoy being the person making all the decisions. I wanted it to be collaborative, but you can't expect to find people who share your vision. Even if they like your ideas, that doesn't make you a collaborator.
Okay.
And so you know what I mean? So the relationships thing got a little complicated. And so the sound changed. And between the first record and the second record, the first record being What's Mine Is Yours, which was released by Neurot Recordings, which is the label from the band Neurosis.
Right.
Totally different, but they got it. They understood what we were trying to do. In the interim between that and Last Sight of Land, which was only released in Europe, which we made with a producer who was my bandmate, Larry Mullins, aka Toby Dammit, who I played in Angels of Light with and moved to Berlin with. It's like there's all these stories in there, but basically Larry produced Last Sight of Land, and we were both really into these like heavily orchestrated, sort of soundtracky kind of almost Scott Walker type arrangements.
Okay,
and so the writing, I wrote all the songs like as the quote unquote songwriter, but he wrote the arrangements, and it was with his direction that that album went into this very kind of lush but kind of icy, distant
Yeah, that's
sound.
perfect.
And almost no guitar at all, as where the first album had a lot of guitar. So it was a departure for the band.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I get a little soundtrack vibe out of both of them. Bee and Flower sounds more like it could be something from Twin Peaks-ish era.
Yeah,
David
exactly.
Lynch, and Bee and Flower is a little more orchestrated. I mean, Bee and Flower, Last Sight of Land. I'm looking at the album cover right now, so Last Sight of Land sounds a little more orchestrated. A little. I don't want to say radio friendly or commercial, but it's a little bit lighter. To me,
way later, yeah.
Than What's Mine Is Yours. I'm getting like I Know Your Name, On the Mouth. Those are really Lynchian sounding songs to me. But and I hear, and we'll get to Insect Arc soon, but I definitely hear that on songs like Let It Shine. It's kind of peeking through, and then the song Dupe. That song fascinates me because it kind of sounds like everyone's kind of doing their own thing, like unaware of what everybody else is doing, but it works. It everything meshes. It's a really interesting song.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. That song always sounded like some giant gear or like inside of a watch, like all these things moving at different rates, but they all lock in this weird way.
Exactly.
And Dupe was one of the ones that I had written completely and like presented it to the band. And I had written that in my, bedroom in San Francisco. In the dark, like
oh my god,
on my piano, I had done. Yeah, that's like probably the oldest song.
It's such a cool song. I love it. It's one of my favorites on the album. But
yeah, nice.
So when did you start actually playing the lap steel or the pedal steels, whatever? I'm not sure.
Steel, yeah.
When did that start coming up? Because that's in Bee and Flower.
Yeah. So Lynn Wright, who was the guitar player for the years that Bee and Flower was based in New York, Lynn also played lap steel. And initially when he joined, I had wanted him to only play lap steel. I was like, I don't want Bee and Flower to have any guitar because I didn't want the band to sound like anything else. I was like, if you take away the thing that all bands have, what's that? Guitar.
Yep. And
find other solutions, it's going to sound like nothing else. So in the end, it was just made sense to me, but Lynn is an incredible guitar player. So I was like, all right, his sense of like his whole style and his phrasing and his sense of dynamics, like Lynn and I hardly ever had to talk about anything creative because he just got it.
Oh, nice. So it's okay. Oh, fine. You're good enough. Go ahead.
Not even that. I just mean that in the sense that, other people, sometimes we would work together on their parts just because, it was my idea of how the music should be arranged and orchestrated. So somebody would come up with something and I'd be like, I don't know, I think it's a little too busy. Maybe you could, pull out some notes or maybe you could hold this one and, sort of working together. But Lynn would always just come up with something. And I was like, yeah, that rolls. That's amazing. Awesome. That's beautiful. And Lynn makes amazing music of his own now, does scores for dance and film. And he's really, done amazing stuff. All those guys are incredible musicians. But there's one album that got skipped between Bee and Flower and Insect Arc. And it's the sort of the story leading to Insect Arc is, so what happened was Bee and Flower made the first record during 9/11. Like we were making that record during the whole September 11th thing. And it was devastating, like to be in New York trying to make that record. We made it, we mixed it. We had a falling out with most of us, and myself and Roderick Miller, who's the piano player, and Larry Mullins, aka Toby Dammit, who I had been playing with in Angels of Light, and Michael Draw had sort of given us walking papers from Angels of Light, and we were like, screw it, and we came to Berlin. So myself and Rod and Larry came to Berlin to make Last Sight of Land and decided to stay here. So here I am in Berlin again, and ended up living here. I ended up living here for 4 years. Larry and Rod both stayed. And then I, after 4 years, moved back to New York. Okay. And then while in Berlin, Bee and Flower, there was a Berlin version of Bee and Flower with several different people, quite a handful of different musicians, but some of them were around more than others. And Thomas and Yoni and Reiner and like all just Udo, tons of folks, Sibylla, people who played with us in different, lengths of time, and some were just for recording, some for touring. But then when I moved back to New York, we made that album Suspension. And Suspension is not really well known, but I think it's a really great record, actually. And it was made between Germany and New York, and it involves people from both the original Bee and Flower, we kind of made up, and with the guys that stayed behind, which was Lynn and John, guitar player and violinist, and myself and Rod, and Larry was never really in the band. And then Ethan Donaldson joined for drums, and then we tried to tour a little bit, and that was basically the end of Bee and Flower. And so when I moved back to New York in 2008, I was just really zapped, like out of energy from trying to manage a band on 2 continents. And like, it was always really uphill trying to get anything to happen with that band. Like I loved it, and I had invested, a lot of years into it, like 12 years, invested a lot of time, a lot of love, a lot of energy, a lot of money. And, it was quote unquote my band. It was our band, but like it was, I was the songwriter and I was the manager, and business wise, that band was, I don't want to say a failure, but it was not successful. And it was really hard to get things going. Yeah. And I never really understood why, because I think, I stand behind the work. I think it's something I'm really proud of. Oh, absolutely. I never wanted to be a singer, and I never wanted to be a front person. And I didn't want to, like I say, be even a band leader, but, I had ideas. And I had time, and I would end up writing all these parts, and I was like, God damn it, I just wrote a song with 5 parts. So like, now what? I really like those ideas. Can you play that part? So it was more like that. Okay. So when I moved back to New York in 2008, and I had decided to, split from Berlin after we made Suspension, I was like, you know what? I just don't have it in me. This band has just drained me and not been successful. So, and not even like personally successful in the sense like I had this work that I really believed in, but it wasn't about money. It was just about like I couldn't get people together. I couldn't schedule things. We didn't have any opportunities for tours. We couldn't find a booking agent. We we just couldn't get anything happening. It just was like, I felt like I was beating a dead horse. So I was like, you know what? I'm not killing off this band, but I'm it's kind of going on a semi-official hiatus. And then I was like, oh, well, now what? And I was like, well, I think I'm going to just do something alone. What can I do alone? And then I got this lap steel, and I had this opportunity to go out on tour with my friends in this band, Enablers. And they were like, yeah, but there's only room for 1 person in the van on this Europe tour. Can you do something alone? And I was like, sure. So I scrambled it together, and I wrote some parts, and I got a lap steel, and I figured out how to do this thing live. And that was the beginning of Insect Arc, and it just went from there.
Oh my gosh. I can't imagine. See, I love playing music. I'm not a good musician. I'm not a musician, but I love playing my guitar. I love making noise. I can't imagine picking up something that seems as complicated as a pedal steel and just being, yeah, I'll do something with that.
Well, it's not a pedal steel. I can't play pedal steel.
Okay.
The lap steel. They're very different.
Okay, so what's
it's
all right?
Like
so
the difference between like a tricycle and a Cadillac.
Okay, all right. So okay.
Not really, but kind of.
So
I'm not smart enough to play pedal steel.
So the pedal steel is the one with the foot.
All the levers. Yeah, it bends the bridge and it changes the pitch of individual notes. I mean, I could probably play it now that I've been playing that so well, but it's hard. Yeah,
and that's why I'm like, this sounds crazy. So you're playing the lap steel, which is still different. It's
very hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, half the time it sounds like an animal that's like really sick.
Yeah.
Which can be great if you do that through distortion and delay. It sounds awesome.
All right, so Insect Arc. Well, actually, before we even get into Insect Arc, I do have I want to go back just a little bit and find out a little bit more about how you met up and started working with Michael Gira of Swans. Mm-hmm. So how did you guys meet up, and how did you start touring with him, with Angels of Light?
Yeah, so basically, I had been recommended to Michael from two separate people. He was looking for a bass player / multi-instrumentalist.
Okay.
And David Burton, who I knew from San Francisco, who was a tour manager, he recommended me. And then Kevin Wardis, who was a band manager and worked many, many different hats in the music industry. Both of them I knew from San Francisco, and both were living in New York as well.
Okay.
And I guess Michael was just asking around, and they both said, oh, you should contact Dana. And so that was for the tour of the first Angels record called New Mother. Okay. And so I joined for that tour, and then I stayed in the band and, worked on How I Loved You. And then, we did a bunch of tours. One of them was recorded in different places. There was a live record called We Were Alive, which I don't have a copy of.
Wow.
And then there was Everything Is Good Here, Please Come Home, which was sort of towards the end of my run in Angels.
Okay. And so you recorded with Angels and you recorded with Swans. Is it similar experiences working with both, even though they're both Michael Gira, but they're different bands?
Well, I mean, I can't compare them because my involvement with Swans, even though I am officially a member of Swans, we haven't toured yet with this new lineup that I'm part of. And the recording that I did was adding bass to an existing track in New York. Okay. So that was me going to the recording studio with my bass and sitting with Michael and the engineer, Jason, and, developing a bass track and recording it. So my recording on the new Swans record is just this one track called Some New Things. So
I love that song.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really long.
Yeah.
And it's I'm playing one note in 4 different places, like boom, 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 boom. But it's been a long time since I worked with Michael. In between last year when I recorded that bass part and when I was in Angels, it was like almost 20 years. But
wow.
I've maintained friendships with Michael as well as a bunch of the guys that were in Angels of Light that were also in Swans, like Christoph Hahn and Thor Harris, and then Paul Wallfish, who sort of replaced Thor when Thor wasn't in Swans anymore. We're also really good friends, and I was in Paul's band called Botanica, and and then also like Norman and Christopher and Phil, and then Cassis, who played in Angels. Also, like, these are all people that have been friends, and we've been in each other's realms and involved in the same music community this whole time. So in a way, I've been remained connected to that scene without actually, being part of the band. Okay. But was it like, I can't really say if it's changed. I guess there's some things that have probably changed about working with Michael, and there's probably some things that are, identical. Yeah. Hard to say. Yeah. Or similar.
And who knows, once things pick up again, once the touring starts, because when he came on the show, he said he was going to do something completely different with the tour, and it was going to be more of them, the band members, just kind of sitting chamber music style, playing at each other. So, who knows what it's actually going to end up being once touring can resume. But
yeah, I mean, that's how Angels set up. We were set up in like this semicircle with Michael in the middle, and the drums were not necessarily in the back, So I think it'll still be loud, honestly. It won't be as loud, and it won't be as bludgeoning, but I think it's not going to be easy listening.
It's going to be a quiet tour.
No, I don't think so. I would be surprised because, Michael doesn't want to go out and play these songs. Like, he's totally uninterested in developing live versions of the album that are the same. I mean, he wants to fuck with it and rework it and change it and make it new. And it's really challenging, but it's really exciting. And, the demands that he puts on the musicians are not unlike the demands he puts on people at shows, where it's, a lot of it is about like, how long can you take it? Yeah. How long can you push something? It kind of burns you clean in a way. And I think that, even though it can be extremely challenging and exhausting, and you could question why, the proof is there that somehow that sensibility is transferred to the music, and it transfers onto the album, and it certainly translates in the live experience. Unfortunately, since I'm kind of a late comer to Swans, I've not had a chance to see a live show yet, and I'm dying to see a live Swans show in any form. Well, you should check Marco's film that he made, because I think that captured really a lot of it. Yeah, he sent me a link where I could watch it. It's amazing. Oh gosh, I can't wait to actually be able to own it and pick it up and because he said that the original was like 4 hours long that he sent to Michael. Yeah. And so he said all that stuff that he cut, he ended up having to cut out 2 hours, but he kept it, and that's going to be like bonus material on the disc. So I can't wait to see what I didn't get to see. So right. So back to Insect Arc. There's a recurring theme of bugs in your names. Is that on purpose? I am a fan of bugs, actually. Oh, really? My daughter, youngest daughter, is the exact opposite. She can't. In fact, oh my gosh! If there's anything in the bathroom or in her, Dad, come here. You got to get this bug out of here. Okay. And it's usually something harmless, like a stink bug. No, there's some people creeped out by bugs and snakes. I like creepy things. All right, so as long as they're not like crawling in my ear or like while I'm asleep, or like crawling in my mouth while I'm asleep, I'm good. Oh yeah. For some reason, I just flashed back to one of the Star Trek movies where they put that grub-looking thing in. Oh god. Yeah. All right. So Insect Arc began as a solo project, and so you could actually achieve the sound that
you had in your head?
Well, I knew that it would become that, but honestly, it was initially an opportunity for me to do something completely untethered to other people and to any predefined expectations of what it was going to be.
Okay.
Because for me, Being Flower was about an experiment with myself and with songwriting, because I had never been a quote unquote songwriter before. And I wanted to see if I could do it. And I did it. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why I don't feel so sad that I'm not a singer-songwriter anymore, is that I wanted to see if I could do it. And I guess I did.
Yeah.
With Insect Arc, the idea was to just see what happens when I make sounds and I don't care about things like song structure or choruses with melodies that are memorable or interesting or pretty or anything. I didn't want to have any limitation or any pressure on myself, because I had just come out of this very long relationship with this project that, had kind of broken my heart because it didn't have a chance to live. So I was like, well, I'm just going to allow myself to fuck around. And, early on, when I went from being somebody who was in bands, collaborative bands like Gift Horse, for example, and between Gift Horse and Being Flower, when I was learning all these different instruments, I'd make these weird little sound pieces and recordings of little abstract sort of textural compositions or just drones or playing with sounds. And I really, really enjoyed it. And so I naturally gravitated towards that. And I think that's why early on with Insect Arc, it was more abstract. It was more drone based. It wasn't really as concerned with songs. And it was
right.
Just letting shapes kind of form themselves. So, and if it tickled my brain in the right way, I was like, yeah, that's cool. I like it. And it doesn't have to be anything. And I was amazingly, people don't believe me when I say this, but I was very unaware of the genre that people consider Insect Arc to be part of at that time. So this is the end of 2011, beginning of 2012. Most of what people consider like Insect Arc to fit into this like experimental doom genre, like I was totally unaware that existed for the most part.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know about most of those bands. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Like, I'm some newcomer, like whatever. I've been listening to metal since 1982. So, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's, like I didn't know about all these bands, and
okay,
fine, whatever, So anyway, the idea was to just like make something, because I was contemplating like what, I've dedicated my adult life to music. Like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, unfortunately, being a goal-oriented person is that you want to see some fruits of your labor, and no artist. If an artist goes into something expecting to make a living off of it, then I think that you can question their motivation. Not that it's a bad thing, but that was never my point. So
right. That's not why you're doing it.
That's not why I'm doing it. No. So I thought, like, just go for it, see what happens, and just come up with some stuff. That's what I did with Insect Arc.
One Insect Arc song with lyrics.
Yeah.
So
on the first 7-inch.
Yeah. So why? You said you wanted to kind of back away from being a front person. Why did you start singing initially, and nothing since?
Because it was something that I could do, because what I was doing was playing bass and lap steel and synthesizer and doing all these like live loops and launching off samples, and like it's very like being an octopus,
Right.
Leave me reeling.
You know, like how many things can one person do? And it got to be a bit ridiculous. And I was like, well, I'm not even utilizing this one ability to make sound, which is my voice. And so I tried it. And what I didn't like was that I started, unbeknownst to myself, really going back into songwriter brain. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to make it about that. I didn't want to be a front person, which is absurd because that's the only band member. And I was playing shows, so of course I'm the front person. But it's not the same. Like when you're the singer in a band and you're standing there, people are watching you. They're expecting you to perform for them. They're expecting something from you.
Right.
I don't know what it is, but I was like, nope, I'm just a human making some sounds here. So I gave up on it also because singing was never easy for me. It was very, very much so like work to do it well. And I thought if I removed the thing that made me feel the most vulnerable, that I would feel more powerful and free to not sit there and self-judge myself like, oh, that I sang that note out of tune, or that was lame, sounded shitty. Like I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna take that out. And I love instrumental music, and I wanted to do something that was just totally neutral, like sounds from outer space. Like who knows where it comes from? Like is this a person making it? Like I don't know. So, and I didn't want it to be gendered either.
Well,
so I just was like, fuck it. So I was like, after the first song, I was like, nope. But initially my whole set was about half vocal stuff. And that first tour that I did with Enablers, like there's some video on YouTube from the first tour I did in 2012, and I'm singing on like half of it.
Oh, wow.
I lost half my first set of material. Some of it I thought was really good. I really liked it, but I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah. Well, I loved the EP that you did, Long Arms. Oh my gosh. Long Arms and Liftoff are incredible.
Thanks.
I absolutely, Liftoff to me, I live for that kind of sound. I absolutely love it.
Oh, nice.
Once Marco turned me on to Insect Arc, and the first song I heard was The Vanishing. So it was the last song on your latest album, and I remember.
Interesting place to start.
It was
the last song on the last record.
I know. Why not? I don't know why. I can't even say I picked it. I don't know if it may have been the first thing that came up on YouTube when I started looking for it, and
sure.
I heard that, and I didn't even realize at the time. Marco just said, "Hey, check out this. I want you should have Dana on your show. Check out her band Insect Arc." So all I did was look it up on YouTube immediately.
Right.
And I think the first link was that song. So I just clicked on that, and then I didn't even realize at the time that you were playing lap steel. So I just heard this, and all of a sudden I just heard it go the note descend, and I went, yes. I think I actually said it out loud and then scared my wife. So
she's like, why are you talking to the computer?
Yeah, exactly. Are you
That's
watching
great.
porn?
Yes.
Yeah. More of that.
I say that a lot. Yes. Stand on a chair, put your arms up in victory.
Yeah. So that's this. I absolutely love that it's almost a sinister sound on that with the way
Oh,
that
yeah.
I love it.
That's the goal.
It's awesome. That's what I like to hear. That's the goal. So I guess you're kind of in same boat as a lot of us now, kind of sitting at home waiting for things to start happening again. Are you working on any new Insect Arc music or any other projects musically?
Well,
because I know you do a lot of films. You do some film scoring also.
I've done a little bit. I would like to do a lot more, honestly, and it's something that if anybody knows somebody who wants me to make a film score for them, I can do it all.
Exactly.
Sorry.
No.
Really lame effort at pitching myself. The thing I'm the worst at, selling myself. But
I'm so bad at that too. That's why I'm not a professional photography anymore. I'm terrible.
It's hard convincing people that you're the shit. Like you should hire me. Like I would never be able to say that to somebody. But I'm really interested in that, and I am not working on an album, for example. I mean, The Vanishing just came out a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And it came out, and then we left for tour, and then here we are. So,
yeah.
It was a lot of work to get that record done. And last year was really crazy, and everything leading up to making that record and all the different things that transpired, like, the split with my last drummer, Ashley, and meeting Andy, and who's playing drums now, and all the steps in between. I've been doing some synthesizer work on my own, making sound pieces, and
oh, cool.
I have all my gear with me because I was supposed to be on tour with Swans right now. So I have a bass, a lap steel, a synthesizer, a laptop, and then like a little bit of clothes. not many, honestly. And so, to be honest, and this is something I think that I've heard other people, artists saying, is that they're having a hard time making new work. And here's my theory, and it's maybe totally wrong, but what I think happened, why I'm not using this time to write new music when like the days are really like long and pretty free, is that facing what everybody's facing with this COVID coronavirus thing is, the first weeks where everyone was just like, holy fucking shit, like, am I about to get sick and die? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody's brain was like, whoa, what? Like, okay, I don't know how to act or work within this.
Right.
And then it was sort of like, okay, I haven't gotten sick yet. I guess I'm all right. I guess my methods of hand washing and hand sanitizer and going to the store or not or whatever, like it's basically okay. So the first month, though, I think everyone was like, okay, I got to stay safe. And then it was like, okay, I guess I'm safe. And then it was like, everyone is saying this is really serious. Like, how long is this going to go for?
Yeah.
And so, I personally I can only speak for myself, very concerned about like, what's going to fucking happen? Like, the bottom is dropping out of everything as we know it, and the music business is being decimated, and everyone's saying, everything's been canceled, and, it's sort of like somebody saying like, yeah, we're going to maybe tear your house down, but it's cool. We'll let you know, You're like, wait, what? You can't do anything but sit around and worry about it. And that's kind of what I did for the first month. And then the second month I was like, oh fuck, I am in so much debt. I haven't worked. All my animation work is dried up. Nobody knows what the hell is going on. And, all the tours are being canceled, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to get out and work again, doing music work. And it's just like, and then the depression set in, and then it's like, oh, there's going to be no more shows this year. And when this shit comes back, it's going to only, like, all the the smaller bands are going to basically just have to wait because the venues and promoters and clubs, whatever's left, which remains to be seen what's left after, all these people go out of business, is that they're going to only want to promote bigger shows that are guaranteed to have crowds because audiences also don't have money and promoters won't want to take risks, and et cetera. And so it impacts every stage from the musicians down to, the booking agents, the promoters, the people who own the venues, the bartenders, the merchandise companies, the people who provide equipment and vehicles for tours. Like, everybody's impacted. And this is a really hard thing to wrap your head around. So
yeah, even you just saying that, there's a lot of things that I didn't think about.
The whole thing that
wanted to get bigger artists.
Yeah, I mean, so the whole bottom has kind of dropped out, and we're kind of waiting to see how things land. And there's still a lot of questions about what's going to happen with the rest of the year. Like, it is possible that some performances will be allowed under, 500 people or 250 people, but nobody knows. Yeah. And I think that what the real problem that I'm experiencing in my inability to sit down and write music is that life in general feels so incredibly uncertain and just unhinged and out of control that I can't focus. So instead, I'm I'm just putting my energy into other stuff right now.
Like coming onto my podcast.
I'm happy to do podcasts and talk. But, it also has to do with isolation and, fear, and really big existential questions are coming up. Yeah. And I'm partially allowing myself the time to rest, which is not something that I've done for years. And I think a lot of people are experiencing that there's suddenly all this time, and so that they don't have to constantly have an agenda. There's no expectations of them. I'm not jumping on the I got to do a live stream thing, because I'm just trying to figure out where I'm sitting in all this. And I know that at some point I'll start writing again, but at the moment, just kind of taking it day by day. So,
well, I'm hoping things pick up in the near future, but like you said, you just never know, because you not only have to get everybody on board on the artist side, but now you also have to convince people that it's okay to come out and see shows. So it's true. It may, and you never know. You don't know how the public is going to react to that stuff. So they could jump on board and say, yes, this is what I've been waiting for. I've been stuck at home for 3 months. Now I want to see a show, but
do you
it could be the other way.
I feel like that as soon as people say things are safe, most people are going to be all right.
I think so.
I don't know. I could be totally wrong about that though, because it really depends. Who do you listen to? You're going to listen to, the president? Yeah. Tells you it's safe to go to, safe to go back out and resume life. I don't personally think that that's what we're experiencing. I'm not in the U.S. right now, but what's happening there, that is not leadership. So do you trust people to know, where I'm at right now, Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, she was a scientist. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that she has a better idea of the scope of this, and that, you weigh the pros and cons, deciding, it's safe to resume public gatherings. Yeah. And if they say that it's not, then there's probably a reason. And are we being told everything? Doubtful. Yeah. Highly doubtful.
Yeah. I don't think we ever are on anything. So
never.
It's
definitely not.
So,
no way.
I'm going to leave it. Once things start to open up, I'm just going to have to make up my own mind as to whether I think I'm comfortable going out, into a crowd or not. And because I was, I started doing some more music photography. I'd kind of stopped for years, and then started shooting some shows here over the past year or so, and I just started, posting through a local, I guess, DC area live music blog, and it's been a blast. And I got 2 shows into working with them, and then everything got shut down. I was like, argh. So
yeah.
I've got the bug. I'm itching to get back to it, but then again, I was also in the middle of a crowd of people pressing against the stage, and I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with that at this point. So.
Right, and wearing a mask's not going to keep somebody from like drooling on you or sweating on you, or
exactly.
And and we're not scientists. We don't know what is really. We don't understand the implications of this on a bigger scale. Nobody does.
Right.
And if they do, we're not getting that information, and we maybe never will. So I think we got to just all write it out the best we can and try to, do whatever you got to do to get through the day. I mean, I feel like people are having very different experiences depending on what their life is like. Like people who, already the work from home, and if they have remote jobs, like they're handling it kind of okay. But then people who had to go to offices and have families and their kids are being now homeschooled over the computer, like their day-to-day life has been completely upturned. And I know that there's a lot of, yeah, sure.
That's me. I have to go to the office every day. My job, I cannot do my job remotely. I'm hands-on.
So you had been going to work?
Yeah, every day. After what happened was, when my wife got tested, they shut me down for 2 weeks.
Yeah, sure.
And that was fine. And then in the middle of that, they decided we're going to take everybody in your department, we're going to split it in half, and you're going to work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for like a month. And so I ended up having 3 weeks off because they said, well, you're already off. We're going to put you in the first group of people who are staying home. And then, so then I was out for 3 weeks, and then I went in for 2 weeks. And then in the middle of that, they decided, well, we're not going to do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. We're going to do 1 week now. And then, so you stay home for another week and then come back. And then, so I stayed home for 1 week, and I was the only person in my department because my department's kind of small. And they were I was going to be off for 1 week, and then somebody else was going to be off for 1 week. Then the third person was going to be off for a week, and then the last person. And then, so I got off for a week, and then they decided, no, we're not going to do we're not going to do that again. Everybody just come back to work. And so now everybody's pissed off because I'm the only one that got like this extended time off. I mean, they're not mad at me because, it wasn't my choice. They just told me. But now everybody in my area is just back to going in every single day. And my kids have been out of school since March.
Right.
But I live in an area where it's kind of rural. I'm out in Winchester, and there's some rural areas where they can't guarantee that the kids have high enough internet speeds to actually get the work and submit it. And so they just decided, well, we're not going to require you to turn in any more work. School's basically over, but whatever's outstanding is still due. So just work on that. Your teachers will be posting stuff to your Google Classroom accounts, but it's not required to turn it in because we can't guarantee that everybody has the ability to turn it in. So just, try to do that. Maybe your teachers will take that into account for your grade. Maybe not. Who knows?
Jesus.
So it's crazy. So we're making our kids do it, but it's been tough and my wife can work from home, fortunately, but I can't. So she's got to do her job during the day and also keep track of the kids. Fortunately, the kids I got 3 teenagers, so they're all fairly self-sufficient.
Right.
But the schoolwork, you got to stay on them because they're not going to want to do it. So, my wife.
Yeah, I mean, what's the incentive,
Yeah, exactly. They've already been told it's not going to get graded, so.
Right.
It's crazy. But, all right, so I have just a couple more questions, and then I can let you have the rest of your evening or afternoon.
Yeah, sure. But before we do that, can I ask you to hang out for just 15 seconds? I just got to go get a glass of water.
Yeah,
okay, give me a sec.
No
Thanks.
rush.
Okay, great.
All right.
Alrighty.
So, all right. So, and that was easy. I've had Mark Lanigan had to eat some yogurt when I had him on. And then
You had Mark Lanigan on? I'm such a fan.
oh yeah. I'll send
Was
you
he
a link.
chatty?
Oh my gosh, we talked for almost 2 hours. It was insane. And
What?
he was laughing his
Can't wait
ass
to
off.
listen to that.
Oh, he was laughing
That
his
guy.
ass off.
Oh man, his voice is like
Oh,
golden gravel. It's the best.
it is. Sometimes I post on some podcasting sites, and they're always trying to get engagement. So they're always like, if you could change one thing on your podcast, what would it be? And mine's always, I would have Mark Lanigan's voice for my podcast. That's what I would want for my podcast. The only thing I really want to change about this is my voice.
Your voice is fine. Come on.
Thank you, but I can't stand it. I think everybody thinks that, though. I don't think anybody really likes the sound of their own voice once they hear it recorded. But
You get used to it, though, don't you?
I don't know. I guess so. It's this is the third podcast I've done. I did 2 sports podcasts before this. One was the DC area, and one was I've got a couple buddies of mine out in LA, and we did a sports comedy kind of podcast. A buddy of mine, he was a producer for the Jim Jeffries show, and so we got together and did. He wanted to do a little break because Jim didn't do a whole lot of sports stuff, and he's a huge sports fan. He's like, I gotta be creative with sports. I got. All right, let's do this. And the other guy, I don't know if you ever watched the show Smallville. Okay, it was a show about Superman as a teenager. And
Sounds good.
yeah, my buddy's brother played Lex Luthor on it. So I got those 2 guys out in LA, and they're 2 single guys out in LA, and the other side was me and my buddy Mike, and we're married in Virginia. And so we would just kind of have differing opinions on sports and it just ended up being more comedy than sports. And it was a blast.
Sounds great.
Oh, it was awesome. But the first one we did like 100 and something episodes of the first episode of the first podcast. We did exactly 100 of that one, the 8-Ball Sports Show, that we did exactly 100 episodes of that. And Mark Lanigan was my 100th episode of this podcast. So
wow.
Around 300 episodes, I'm starting to get used to my own voice. I still don't particularly like it all that much, but now I at least don't cringe when I hear it.
Oh, come on.
It's true. It's true.
I like your voice just fine.
Oh, thank you. But, all right, I guess the question I had, and it's kind of out of left field at this point, but Insect Arc, the music sounds very cinematic, like it could be a soundtrack. I've had some guests on the show talk about writing music, and they say they think of it visually. And how do you approach writing a song for Insect Arc, since there's no lyrics and like you said, you were trying to stay away, at least in the beginning, from standard song structures and forms. Yeah. So how do you compose for Insect Arc?
I guess in a way it's not any different than what I used to do, which is that it's all based on inspiration from sound itself.
Okay.
Because I was never driven to like spread a message lyrically, for example, which many people are, and that's an important part of their writing process. For me, it was never like, I've got this burning message. I never considered myself a lyricist. I never thought like I have this burning need to spread my wisdom, like nothing like that. It's for me, which is, again, like, I'm not knocking it whatsoever. I'm just saying, for me personally, it's not the case. And I mean, so let's see. I was doing like a email interview this morning, and somebody asked me how I created one of the songs. So this might be an interesting way for me to sort of relay, because it sort of made me think about, because they said, how did you create this song? And this somebody who's a non-native English speaker. So I was like, what do you mean? How did I create that song? And so then I thought, like, okay, how did I create that song? And it's one of the new songs on The Vanishing. It's called Danube. Oh, yeah. And I was like, okay, how did I create that song? So the first part of it was something... Well, to just give some context, the song is in 3 sections, and the first section is just lap steel. It's got these sort of weird, like little synth outer space sounds just for a couple seconds. And then there's this very lonesome, echoey lap steel melody, which is not really constrained by a time signature. And it's this phrase that develops, and then it kind of spreads out, and then it repeats. And then it goes to another section of the song, which is really big and orchestrated. The drums come in, there's bass, there's all these heavy synths, and it's this really looping kind of ascending melodic line that continues to build upward and upward, and then it kind of falls down, and then it repeats, and then it goes to this outro, which is this like kind of Pink Floyd sounding like really bummer jam. So that's the song Danube. And so like what this interviewer was asking me, how did I create it? And what I told him was, I said that the initial part of it was the first part of the song was something that I wrote in 2018, actually, when the previous drummer, Ashley, and I were in Stockholm. We were doing a residency at a place called EMS Stockholm, which is a analog synth mecca. And we had a week-long residency there, recording residency. And while we were playing with the synths, I had my lap steel because we had just been at Roadburn in the Netherlands, played there. And then we went to Sweden, and I wrote that melody in the recording studio there, and then just kind of shelved it. And then later on came back to it and, developed it into a song. So it was just like a piece. I mean, I sat down with this instrument, the lap steel, which I'm in love with, and I think I'm getting to be okay at it. I would not say that I'm, I don't feel like I have command of the instrument, but I know how to get some cool sounds out of it. And I'm definitely getting better at it, but it's not like bass that I've been playing for, I don't know, 20 something, 30 year, I don't know, a long time. Since I was a teenager. Lap steel less than 10 years, and it's fretless, and it's, it's got a lot of challenges to it. But, so it also allows you, or allows a person to come up with things that are unexpected. And that's, I think, a lot of what the interest of the instrument was to me, not just because sonically it's really scary sounding, and it's really like crazy sounding, and it sounds like you can strangle it and you can like get it to coo like a baby. I mean, it's really a dynamic instrument, and that's why I love it. But I sat down and I kind of came up with this melodic idea, and I was like, that was cool. And then from there I just kept playing it, and then I record it. So maybe I will try to reel my rambling in to answer your original question. So I'll come up with something. I'll just sit down with an instrument, whether it's the lap steel or a synthesizer, or sometimes I write on bass, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't want to forget that. So then I record it, and I'm just like, just record it as is. Don't overthink it. Document the very idea in its like original form with all of its mistakes or whatever. And because if it's not good enough, I'm just like, okay, that's whatever, like that's gone. I don't care. But if I like something enough to document it, usually I'm going to develop it. So I'll come back to it at some point, and I'll be like, okay, that's cool. This could be better. I'll change that note to this note. Okay, that's cool. Maybe this should be on another instrument. No, keep it on this instrument. They'll be like, well, maybe I could write another part for that. Or maybe I could write, the B section to the song. Or maybe I could write a harmony for that. This kind of builds on itself. And then, I'm constantly demoing things. And then when I have a chance to get away from it for a day or two and come back and listen to it, it'll strike me in a different way and I'll get excited and then more ideas will come. But it takes a little bit of time. I mean, not always, but the time to sit back and like listen to something almost as if I didn't write it and to sort of see about where I think it could go. So I'm sort of directing myself in a way.
Wow. That's okay. Well, that's really cool. I mean, it's worked out perfectly because the new album Vanishing is just, it's awesome. It's spooky. It's sinister sounding. It's which is why when I heard the first couple of tracks from Being Flower, and then I heard that, I'm like, this is the same person. This is crazy. So, but once you explained it a little bit to me, it made a little more sense, and I made that connection a little bit easier. So,
yeah, I mean, the new record sounds really different than the last full length.
Yeah.
Insect Dark release, which was called Marrow Hymns. I mean, the first few releases, there was a 7-inch called Collapsar that came out in 2012, and then the next year I put out the Long Arms EP, and then 2 years after that, in 2015, I put out the first full-length Portal Well, and those all three were all me. Like I did, bass, synth, slap steel, programmed drum machine, and I recorded it all myself. And then an engineer in New York named Ethan Donaldson, he mixed it, and different people mastered some of those things. But and then when then I decided I wanted to get a drummer because I was just being a bass player. I was like, God, it's really hard to get excited about playing to a drum machine, especially for live.
Yeah.
Sonically, I thought it was cool, but for live, I was like, eh. So the idea was to try to like do it, and I met Ashley and she was like, yeah, let's try it. And then I was like, oh, this is fun. This is cool. And, we got along really well. And even though she lived in Portland and I lived in New York, we made it work for a while. And eventually, while we were working on demos for The Vanishing, she and I basically, there was a breakup, and I don't really want to get into that because it's this whole long thing. Yeah. But, a lot of that music was pretty far along. I had been writing all year, and we had been sending some stuff back and forth. And then I was in Oregon where she lives, and we were working on like just the sort of really skeleton of the demos, just the shapes of the songs. And then I went back to New York and I wrote all the overdubs. Okay. And then we had this split. And then I threw away about half of that.
Oh, wow.
Or a lot of sort of the ideas that she had contributed, her drum beats, all that stuff just didn't stick because I met Andy, and I wanted Andy Patterson, who's playing drums on The Vanishing, who is an incredible drummer, and he's an incredible recording engineer, a fantastic human, and has played in tons of bands. Many people know him from his band Sub Rosa, who he was in for years. And, he joined sort of not immediately as a member, but I wanted him to put his own stamp on it because we connected musically very quickly. And I actually did something I've never done, which was actually bomb the plane ticket and flew him to New York to try him out because there was a tour planned just a couple of months later, and the album was already planned.
Oh, wow.
Like our manager had already, together with us, developed this timeline to make and record and release a new album. Oh, and gosh. So it was important to stand. So Andy and I worked together for a month, and reworked all those new songs.
Oh, wow.
And then went on tour.
Man, that's a trial by fire right there.
It was intense, but he's a really hard worker, and he's really fast, and his ideas were great, and his approach was really good. And so we were basically pulling together live versions of material that wasn't even recorded. And that at the same time trying to also prepare for the recording session, which was going to happen within a week of the tour being finished. And the tour went really well. It was with a North American tour with a Finnish band called Oranssi Pazuzu, which I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're incredible. Yeah, so we went and did the tour with them, then we made the record, and because I had already written all the overdubs between Ashley and I splitting and Andy joining, a lot of the work was done because, you know, you write sort of when you're a two-piece, you know, you can't play everything all at the same time. So I had to write the overdub, like the secondary melody ideas and sort of little synth blobs and blips and things like that.
Okay.
So you know, so last year was just a total fucking whirlwind. And, you know, so in a way, like what came out of it with The Vanishing was like, I obviously haven't listened to it in a couple months, like really since we finished it.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I do hear it, a lot of times I'm really surprised because it came together. In some ways, it was a really long process, but the final product came together very fast. Colin Marston, who we made the album with, and Andy and I had just been on tour playing these things every night. And so the album was recorded and mixed in 3 weeks, which the previous album took a year.
Oh, my gosh.
So, you know, so things are constantly shifting and changing, and I've kind of just accepted that my life is just going to be like kind of upside down. And some of those choices are, you know, intentional, and some of them, I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm not going to say that I've handled everything perfectly, you know, like we're humans and we make mistakes, but like I am trying to do things right and do right by people and, you know, be in service to my creative ideas, because it kind of seems like that's all I have. And I don't mean to sound like, you know, dramatic or whatever, but if you dedicate your life to art, then all you have to show is you have to be able to stand behind what you made. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, it's important to clarify. You don't have to stand behind what you've made, but if that's what defines your life, I hope for you or for anybody that you can stand behind what you've made. Because if you do a half-assed job of something, but you also say that's what defines your life, then what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. You're not dedicated to it. And at least that shouldn't be what defines your life then, if you're only doing it half-assed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like I've given up like pretty much a life of, I don't know. I feel like I've given up a lot of things in service to be able to do what I want to do. And that's why it's like such a bitter, painful thing when things don't work, is because you feel like, you know, life can go many directions if you're lucky and privileged, which I guess, you know, in some ways being a white person from North America, you know, I recognize that there are privileges to that, which, you know, I'm not going to say I'm proud of, but that was what I was born into. And many people would consider that lucky. And, you know, I've been fortunate to be able to even have the choice to say that, you know, I'm going to define myself as an artist, but nobody's like made it easy for me. Like I don't get grants, and, you know, I don't. Yeah. I know people are not like handing me shit. It's like there's no nepotism involved here. Like I've had to like work my ass off for everything always, and still sometimes get nothing and still decide to do it anyway. So, you know, during a pandemic where you're like, you know, no wonder I can't fucking sit down and write any music, because it's just like the weight of the world. But, you know, this is going to pass. It might be a year. Yeah. It might be longer.
It will. And I know
or
exactly
not, or it won't. You know what I mean? And I'll get a job in a supermarket. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I know
it's a really weird time.
I know exactly what you mean. And that's one of the reasons I ended up getting out of photography, is because I needed something with a more a steadier income. My wife.
Well, you have a family, though. That's a different situation.
Yeah, exactly. But we decided when we got married. My wife said, "Well, when we have kids, I'd love to stay home with them," and so that's fine with me, no problem. And then, you know, but all of our health insurance, everything came through her job because I was independent. And so at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm happy to do it. Let's do it. I'd rather. Yeah. I've always wanted to have kids. I love it. So then I went out and got a job, and now I do the photography. But I kind of like the way it's going right now, because I'm able to do it without the pressure of it having to sell it and having to make money from it. And I feel like, for me, where I'm at right now, I'm actually helps me to be a little more creative and maybe experiment a little bit more because I don't have to worry about somebody saying, oh, you shot, 400 pictures of this and I don't like any of them. We can't use any of them.
Right.
So
definitely. This is exactly why I have two careers. I have one as a musician and one doing computer animation, so that I don't have to compromise, one for the other. I mean, I have to fund my own music.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, not to say that I don't make money with it, but it's not like I'm not making a living off it most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, you're, I don't know, going back to Metallica. It's not like, you're signed to a label and they're giving you all kinds of money to make albums. You don't have like this unlimited budget to go and make The Vanishing. So. No,
I mean, The Vanishing was made on a quite small budget, and I mean, I feel really fortunate to, work with the label that has put out Vanishing and put out Narrow Hymns. They're called Profound Lore Records, and like fantastic label run by Chris Bruni, who has Chris Bruni owns, operates that label for years, and just completely dedicated. I mean, it's a total honor to have a label and to, have booking agents and work with people that take you seriously, having a manager, having a community. These are things that I don't take lightly, because there are many, many incredibly talented people in all fields who have nobody who takes them, seriously enough to want to work with them. So, I mean, there's tons of amazing artists who musicians, bands who can't find somebody to put their album out.
Yeah.
For, even if they pay for it. I mean, what the fuck? You want to give away your art and you can't even find somebody to give it to. That's the reality of creative artists. It's it's wild. This blows my mind. People say listen to my album, trying to beg people to hear what they do.
Yeah.
For free. I
know. It's heartbreaking, because you put your heart and soul into it, and then people are like, no thanks. I don't want to put that out.
I'm too busy looking on Instagram to, read your poem or look at your photograph or check out your song. I mean, we're all part of it, unfortunately, because we're all completely inundated by media to the point that, our brains are fucking jelly. I can't look at another thing. It's been interesting. While I've been here in Berlin, I've been in this sort of media blackout because of problems with internet where I'm staying. And I actually have had very limited time online, and it's been incredible.
We try to do that here and limit the kids with their connections each day. But man, it's hard when they're teenagers. My oldest daughter hasn't seen her boyfriend in 2 months. So all right, well, you guys can go and FaceTime, and that's fine. And then I got to be fair to my son and the youngest daughter,
right?
Because they're friends. My son's best friend just moved to North Carolina, so that let them get online and chat and play games, and then it's tough. You got to limit it, but sometimes it's the only way that my teenagers can communicate with their friends, which is a huge part of being a teenager. So it's a weird time to navigate raising kids. I'll tell you that.
I bet. I really feel for people who are trying to raise families, because, especially kids and teenagers, they don't get to be 14 again or 15 again, exactly. Or be in junior high about to go into high school again. My sister has kids, and they're stuck at home like everybody else's kids. And, there's there's going to be a lot of really similar years, but they're not there yet.
My oldest daughter, her boyfriend is a senior. Was a senior this year. So, his graduation is completely screwed up. So,
what happens? Does he graduate anyway?
He graduates, but I'm not exactly sure how they're doing the ceremony. Some places are doing them online. Some places are just delaying them until they're allowed to have a gathering where the kids can walk down and get their diplomas. So it just depends school to school, county to county. You know, there's no set way that anybody's actually doing. It's really weird. My oldest is a junior, so she'll be a senior. So hopefully, you know, this will clear out before she gets to graduate and all. But it's crazy.
Yeah, well, nobody knows what's going to happen. That's for sure.
Exactly.
It could go on for a long time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I know I have taken up a good chunk of your afternoon here. So I really, really do appreciate you coming on and talking so openly about everything and telling me about Insect Dark, because it's such a fascinating band to me. And I'm like I said before, I'm upset that I've missed out on Bee and Flower, but I am going back and diving headfirst into all of that. My wife loves Bee and Flower, and
thanks.
And I'm gonna be playing it for the kids because they've got a pretty good palette. They've got a pretty wide range of people that they listen to. So,
well, I really appreciate you taking the time to do thorough research so that you can ask me questions that inspire me to talk, because it's not always the case. So thank you for your time as well, Mark.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've said this before, and it's gonna until this whole whatever podcast ends. The way I look at it is, you're kind enough to come up and spend some time with me and talk to me about your career. The least I can do is know about it. Do some research.
Well, I hope it wasn't too rambling. Got me kind of going on a few of those things.
No, it's
anybody who's listening and has made it this far, I commend you. You get a virtual gold crown.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for spending so much time with me. It's been so much fun.
All right, thanks, Mark.